Hello everyone and welcome to the today's session of Peoplesoft HRMS. We are going to discuss about the basic features in Peoplesoft HRMS. These features includes the architecture of Peoplesoft. So we are going to just talk about the basic architecture. Then introduction to HRMS system, which is named as Human Resource Management System. Then we are going to talk about the basic setups, which is the installation settings, companies, business units, table set sharing, establishments, locations and department setups, tables related to compensations, job code and pay groups we are going to talk about. Then we'll touch base a little bit on the permissions of data security. Then we are going to talk about how we can add a person, add people and organize relationship in the HRM system. And then maintain personnel and the job data of a person. As I say that first thing we are going to talk about is the introduction, which is basically the Peoplesoft architecture. If you see in this slide, I've just highlighted 4-5 boxes just to represent the pictorial view of the architecture of Peoplesoft. As we know that we browse the system through a browser. It can be Internet Explorer, it can be a Chrome, or it can be Firefox, or multiple browsers are certified to work on Peoplesoft. If you see on the leftmost side, I've highlighted the browser, and as soon as we see or we click anything on the browser, that request goes to the web server, and from the web server, based on what kind of a request we are processing, it goes to the batch server or the application server. And behind the batch server or application server, there sits the database, which is the RDBMS. As we know that everything stores in the database, all the logics are processed under the application server. If we are executing in batch, like a process which takes longer time, we have to run offline, so that taken care by the batch server. So this is the pure internet architecture of the Peoplesoft, which is applicable for all the application of Peoplesoft. Let's talk about later on the HRMS side. As we know that, as the name says, a Human Resource Management System, it's like going to manage end-to-end necessity of any organization for maintaining their human resources, which includes maintaining the personal data of the person, job data, personal profile, benefits information of the person, payroll. Payroll can be execution of the NA payroll as well as the global payroll, their time and labor data, any kind of a federal information, taxation and all those things. So that all are the basic features. There are multiple advanced features also, but these are the basic features which are taken care by the Peoplesoft HRMS system. Till now we have talked about the basic architecture and the basic functionality of Peoplesoft HRMS. Now if the windows you are seeing is the login page of a demo environment to the Peoplesoft HRMS system. We are going to log in and we are going to browse through one by one different setups of the system, and I'm going to tell you about the basic functionalities, and then we'll proceed towards combining all those to hire an employee in the system. So let me log into the system. So as soon as we log in, it comes like this. This is the home screen. Like if I click on the home, so this is a screen which appears up. So we are going to talk about the setups first. As we all know that when we are talking about maintaining the personal as well as the job information of the employees, the basic thing which a Peoplesoft HRM system does. So we have to do the appropriate setups for that. And in those setups, the basics are the department, the job code, location, company, business unit, and compensation information, pay group, and all those the basic information to be attached to have the complete job profile of an employee. So we are going to browse to set up HRMS. Under that we are going to go for the install and then to the installation table. Here if you see, it has opened up the multiple tabs. Like one is products, HRMS options, product specific, country specific, last ID assigned, third party system. So these are the various setups which needs to be done when we start talking about using any Peoplesoft HRMS system. Then this is the first thing you have to do to do the primary setup on the installation while installing the basic product itself. So that here we are going to check what all products we are going to use, whether we are going to use the human resource, benefit administration, pension administration, stock administration, time and labor, absence management, payroll for North America, payroll interface, global payroll, so on and so forth. They are like all the products which are there. So we can check those, and only those products will be available or navigations are applicable for us when we log into the system. If you see, almost all are checked here because it's a demo environment. One thing you have to be very careful. You have to check only those products to which we have license to. In a demo environment, we can check all, but when we are talking about using the live environment, we should have the appropriate licenses. Else, it is not as per the Oracle policy. It will be illegal obligations on our organizations. Now, if we see the next step, HRMS options. Here, these are the basic HRMS default. What they are talking about the company. What is the basic company? What is the standard hours, minimum, maximum, default standard hours, work period, then some of the compensation ratios, currencies, and position management. That's entirely different modules, which we can set up, and based on that, the system will take the default. There are multiple overrides. We will talk about those as and when we proceed further. Then next comes the product specific. Here, we are going to talk about for a particular product. If we choose that we are using that product, for example, if we choose benefits, if we choose NA payroll, time and labor, AP invoice, commitment accounting, human resource. So we can choose what kind of functionality and feature within that we are going to talk about. If, for example, we say for NA payroll, we talk about concurrent calc or confirm is allowed or not. That means can we run the calc and confirm concurrently or not. For automatic employee tax data, do we want that taxation should be automatic? We can check this. Use state resident for local. So these are the different parameters which we have to check based on how we want to use the particular functionality in the system. Then next comes the country specific. So they are like some specific country has some specific requirements. So for example, if you see the parameter for Canada, Australia, and Japanese, so those are the specific we have to check. Next step shows the last ID assigned. Here in this, we see that what are the different IDs which are assigned to the system. Like for example, we talk about the employee ID. So the last ID assigned as employee is 42. So we know that whenever we are going to have a new employee, that will be start with 43. So in that case, if we want that our employee should start from 1000 or 10000, 4 times 0, or any specific number, we can set that number before using the system. So it will take that as the last assigned ID, and it will take the next ID to be used as the employee ID. So we can define that how many digit employee ID we want, defining it here. Then third party system is nothing major here. It is more about that if we are using any kind of a performance monitor parameter, any third party system we are using for our register chart, or any kind of a scroll setup. So those are the basic information. Then there is one more tab which is hidden on the top. Basically, if you see there is an arrow here, which is alternate character. It's basically used when we are using for different languages. So this is the basic of the installation. Second, we'll go to the company setups. Let's go to the home and then come back. Okay, now we are on the home page back and try to see our next setup, which is we are going to talk about the company. Let's go to the setup HRMS foundation tables. In the foundation table, we will see the organization, and in the organization, we will be able to see company. Company is the legal entity as we are using in Peoplesoft HRMS. So all the transaction related to the legal activities, which can be filing of taxes, any kind of a government dealings, any kind of external dealing will be taken care by the company. So let's try to open an existing company, which is I think GBI. So I just type GBI and click on search. So clicking on search will retrieve the data from the company table, which is company_tbl. Here we can see that we have opened up the company. In this also, if you see, we can see the company location tab, default settings, phones, and rule definition. So there are 4 different tabs given. And just to highlight before going into the details, below you can see the country specific, Belgium and Japan. So it depends how we have set up on the installation table, what all countries are installed. This will all visible, or if you are not using for these countries, those parts will not be visible at all. If you see, as I talked about company is a legal entity, we are going to just set up the company. We can put any kind of a 3-letter abbreviation for it. You can put the description, short description. Set ID not mandatory at this point. Location not mandatory at this point. Default set ID is something we have to set up. At this moment, we can set any. Later on, we can change it. We are going to talk about what is set ID when we discuss business unit. And here, if you see, based on what the location is selected, it is showing the address of that company. Now, if I go to the default settings, here I will see different settings. What are the default pay group for that company? What are the default earning programs? Line in pay sheet. So these are the different parameters which we are going to use in the processing. Like these are specifically for the payroll processing. If you are using the payroll for North America as the head of sales. And below you can see again like a lot of companies are there. I'll try to open it, like for example USA. So it will show what all the different federal related setups needs to be done. Let's try to see United Kingdom, UK. If you see, it's just the business description. So there is no other setup required here. Now if you go to the phone, so basically these all setups we have to do to make sure that whenever any report goes, so there will be a phone number can be published on the header of the report if it is going to the any government organization, and in case of any questions they can call back there. Then next comes the rule definitions, which is if you see here full-time equivalent decimal precisions. So what are the decimal values we want in case of the full-time equivalent precision, which is again the parameter we use for the employee job. Again there is some set of from the France, so you can just see. So there is again paid full-time decimal precision, which is specifically for the France, but we are not going to go into too much detail for that. So this is all about the company setups. Let's go back to the home and see what's next. Okay everyone, we are on the home page. Now we'll start the next topic, which is talking about the business unit and set ID, which is the table set sharing. I'm going to first take you to setup HRMS. Under that we'll go to the foundation tables. On the foundation tables, we'll go to organization, and under organization, we'll click on the business unit. As per the Peoplesoft terminology, business unit is the grouping based on the HR reporting. Depends on the internal, how we want to categorize our business internally. We can have multiple business units within the same company. As we talk about, company is the legal entity, but here business unit is more termed as the an entity in terms of HR reporting. So here let's see, try to search a business unit. Let's try to search GBI. GBI BU is one of the delivered sample BU by the sample environment. So here if you see, we have the status, which is active, description, Global Business Institute BU, GBI BU, and here if you see there is a set ID associated with that share, which is also named as table set sharing across corporation. We're going to talk about the set ID next, but when we see business unit references, it is mapping with various other business unit. If you see, it's more mapping with the financial terminology business unit cross references. If you see here, budgeting business unit, billing business unit, inventory business unit, AR business unit, AP, PO, PC, general ledger. So we can have multiple mapping to be done for the cross reference. Now, next thing we are going to talk about the set ID. As we talked about that it is for table set sharing. What we are trying to say, an employee will be linked to a business unit. Based on that business unit or business set ID assigned to that business unit, we can have the job code, department, location associated. So if a HR person or any manager try to assign any kind of a department, job, location to an employee, he or she will only be able to prompt those which are associated to that particular business unit. Now after business unit, we are going to talk about the table set sharing. As I mentioned just now, table set sharing is used for allowing the user to select on the appropriate location, department, and job code which are associated to that business unit. So let me quickly explain how this particular mapping is done. Like we have just seen that business unit GBIBU is assigned to table set sharing or set ID as share. So let me go to people tools, utilities, administration. Under administration we'll go to table set ID. So here this is just if you open share, this is the basic setup to define the new set ID here. So it is table set sharing across company or corporation, we can say. And if I go to the table set control and open for the same set ID share, so the set control value. So here if you see there are different record groups. Let me try to open some because the demo environment, so we can see a lot of extra record groups here. See, if you see, these are the record groups specific to the HR01, which is related to the department, 02 related to the job code. I will show you what those record groups are. So if you see, the business unit GBIBU is linked to the set control value share, and here these are linked to again the set ID share. So when we see these setups, the department, job code, location, we will see that set ID is the higher level key value for those. So whenever we do the setup, we have to give the set ID first. And what will happen in that case, user when assign the business unit to an employee, he or she will only able to see those departments, job code, location, which are specific to that particular set ID to which the business unit is linked, or set ID linked to the business unit. Now if I show you, let's see group HR01. Let me go to the record group. Here if I go HR_01, in this record group, if you see, there are a lot of tables defined, and for all the tables there will be one specific thing, that the highest level key or the first key value will be the set ID. So this is how the set IDs are linked. Let's go back to the home. Next topic we are going to talk about the department, location and establishment. As we all know that department is something like we can have multiple departments within the organization. And we can say HR department, finance department, IT department, system department, administration department. So this is something similar we are going to see in the HRMS system. Let's try to browse the department. For that, we are going to set up HRMS. Again, same thing, we are going to go foundation tables. Under foundation table, we are going to go to the organizations. And under organizations, we are going to click on department this time. Set ID is the highest level value and which is coming as HRMS share. So that's the point I was highlighting when we are talking about the table set share. Let me try to see if we have some department with GBI. We don't have any. So let me just try to see the blank search. See, we are getting multiple department, 10,000 human resource, then 10,500 and all those things. Let me try to open the department 10,000 itself. This department, you can see it showing as the share and department is 10,000. It is also showing you the link where we can see the business unit that are using this set ID. So we can figure it out for all business unit, this department will be applicable. Again, we have a similar values, that effective date from which this is effective, the status, the description, short description, location set ID because we can associate a location with the department. Then we have a company. Then we can define whether this department has any manager. We can say none. We can select an employee as a manager. which we have to put the employee ID, or we can define a position as a manager if we are using the position management in the system. Then we can also assign a text location code for the department, which is applicable only for the payroll for North America. Again, there are certain setups specific to the particular countries. Let me try to see. Let me open for North America. It's just showing us EO4 function, which is a EO category codes. So similarly, like we have, we can use various kind of features which are country specific. Again, based on what we have selected on the installation table, what all countries, the system will show only those countries here. Now, again, we have this second tab in this case, which is specific to the common accounting. Here we are just going to set up the basic thing. What is the common accounting budgeting department? If this particular department is rolling up to some other department for the budgeting purpose. And we can also select what is the indicator for full-time equivalent edits in case we want to put. Here we are not putting any edits. Edit means kind of a validation. When we have a full-time equivalent indicator as warning or error, depend on the how many FTE in this department it will prompt for the error or warning messages. Let me directly go to the location from here. Again, like if you talk about setup HRMS, then foundation table, and from the foundation table organizations, and we can go to the location. So as we see that in the location, again we have the set ID as the higher level value, so which controls what we can assign to an employee. Let's try to see some location. Let's try to see itself the first location, which is marked as CA. And if I open this location, so you can see that we can put the particularly effective date, status of the location, description, which is a long description, short description, or we can put the entire address of the location. Location is basically the physical address of the office or an organizational official address. So we can have multiple physical locations, so we can set up accordingly. Now on the second tab here, we can see the location profile. So under the location profile, we can define the salary defaults. If we have any kind of a salary default based on the locations, we can define the regulatory reason, which is more specific to the USA. We can define the holiday schedule because that will be specific for different locations. We can define the establishment IDs. For payroll for North America, we can define the taxation locality or check cashing locations. And then we have a different specific location. Like if I try to open for United Kingdom, we can see whether the Northern Ireland reportable or not. So this is how we can define the profile of the location. The next one we are going to talk about is the establishment. Establishment is more like kind of a reporting perspective. We can have multiple location, but there's one establishment for all the location. For example, we have 3 offices in the nearby premises, like I will say that within the same area, and as per the government, it comes under the same regulatory reason. So those can be categorized under a same establishment. So establishment is more specific for the EEO and VETS reporting for the government, which is Equal Employment Opportunity and Veterans. So let's try to open here establishment. Let's open this GPUS establishment A. Here if you see, again we have 2 tabs, establishment address and the phone number. Establishment address is again same, we can put the location address, but as I mentioned that multiple location can have single establishment, so that will be come as the here. And here if you see, we are specifically talking about the regulatory region. And again the other checkbox is headquarter unit. We can have multiple establishment, but one can be defined as a headquarter establishment, so other establishment can come under that. And if you see, again there is a country specific for Mexico, France, Spain, USA. If I open one, I can see like EO unit number, VETS 100 unit number, which are more our establishment registration to the government. And phone number tab is specifically given so that we can define the phone type and phone number, which will be published in the reports we are going to send to the government as part of the EEO and VETS reporting. And in case of any questions, government can reach out to these numbers to contact the particular person in the organization. So that being said, let's go to the home and then proceed further. So next thing we are going to talk about something related to the compensation. For example, like when we talk about the compensation of an employee, there are multiple elements to it. We can say the base pay, there can be special allowances or multiple other allowances, HRA, or any kind of a shift allowance, or those things can be applicable. So here, in terms when we are assigning those elements, those are termed as the rate code. So let's quickly try to browse with the rate code setup HRMS, foundation tables, compensation rules, and under compensation we can go to comp rate code table. And if we see, let's try to open any one of these. If you see here, we can define various parameters as part of the rate code. Again, the basics are effective date, status, description, short description. Then we can define whether it's a basic pay, whether it's a use highest rate, or apply FTE, or default without override. And we can define what kind of a rate code type, whether it's a flat amount, hourly, percentage, point, or what kind of a base it is. Then we can define it in various classes, where we can say calculate by rate matrix or none. Then again we can have the compensation rate, the default ones, currency, frequency, whether it's a monthly or what kind of a frequency it is, or we can also define the earning code, which will be help us in case of translating those during the payroll calculation. Then we can have the seniority pay, depend on specifically little countries, or we can define what kind of a seniority they applicable based on hiring date, birth date, or company seniority date, or professional experience date. Then we can have the combination rules. We can define the default rules which can be applicable. The second part to the rate code is the salary plan. Let's quickly browse to the salary plan. You have to go to the setup HRMS, product related. Under product related, we will go to the compensations. Under compensation, we will go to the base compensation. Under base compensation, we can see the salary plan. Salary plan can be predefined slabs of the salary. Like for example, let's try to open a salary admin plan K0G1. So if you see here salary plan table, you can see again the set ID is the higher level key. Then we have the basic things: effective date, status, description, short description, then standard hours. We can have the currency code, whether it's weekly, what's the work period. Then we can define the different frequencies. So this is how we can define the salary admin plan. And each salary admin plan can be linked to the grade. Let me show you the salary grade also. Let's talk about the salary grade. So if you see, the first level of key is set ID, then salary admin plan, and under salary admin plan we have multiple salary grade. Let's try to see some other example here. So if we see the salary admin plan KC01, we have multiple grade inside that, from 001 to 009. See here, if you see, we have defined the range. What is the minimum, what is the midpoint, what is the maximum. And if we go to the salary step components, here we can define the various rate codes and salary components. So that's how on the high level we can define the salary admin plans, and we can directly associate those to the job codes, or we can also associate directly those to the employee while assigning the job information to that. And all the salary information will be defaulted based on whatever the setup we are going to perform here, or we have set up here. Let's go back to the home before proceeding. Next thing, let's talk about the job code. For that, we are going to go to the setup HRMS, foundation table, job attributes. Under job attributes, we'll get the job code table. As I mentioned earlier, job code is the another component which is dependent on the set ID. Again, as I told that these are the values which will be directly governed by the business unit we have selected. Now next thing, if you see the job code, first one is 110000, which is the accountant. Let's try to open this job code and try to browse the detail of the job code. Okay, now we are on the job code. If you see, there are multiple tabs. First is the job code profile. Under job code profile, we can see the basic things. First thing, effective date, status, job title, short description, long description, job family, which is not a mandatory, job function, which is also not a mandatory field. These are just to group the job code based on the job family or job function. Then we'll see the standard hours, which is one of the mandatory field. To define that, if you see, there's this little star before that. So now other thing is, what is the standard work period? Then we can also define the manager level, whether this job is managerial or not. Then we can define the compensation frequency. And if we go down, we can see some of the country specific things. If we see United Kingdoms, we can see that it is showing as UK SOC code, so which are also related to the job code. So we can assign those. Next comes evaluation criteria. So in the evaluation criteria, we can define the parameters and we can define the points and percentage to it. So whenever we are hiring an employee, we can assign these evaluation criteria, and then based on how much percentage the total points are meeting, the system will automatically try to assign the job code while from the recruitment module. Then we can say market pay match to define the pay scale of the market with the pay scale we are assigning in the organization. Then next comes the default compensation. Here we play the role of the salary plan, grade and step, which we talked about. So when we assign those, the value will automatically default it. And whenever we assign the job code to the employee, these salary and plan will get defaulted. Hence, the salary will be defaulted to that. Then we have the last step with the non-base compensation. If we have to define any specific compensation parameters for this particular job code. Let's go to the home now. Okay, when we are on the home page now, the next thing we are going to talk about the security. Basically, if you see the left navigation here, let me try to go to navigation and try to map how the security is connected. Go to workforce administration, job information, and in the job information, go to the job data. If you see here, it has opened the job record. And if I try to search, now here if you see, if I open any of these employees, C10001, so that will open up the job record of this particular employee. Now, what the security means? Security is basically the access to this particular job data component itself. That I'm able to come to the job data navigation, I'm able to open this, I'm able to search it, and can see the job information of the employee. This is all security about. Now, if you remember, I have logged in with user PS, which is kind of a super user in Peoplesoft, but every user will have their own user ID and password. Now let's try to map that security. For that, let me go back to home. You might be thinking why I go to home again and again, but that is the best way that we can have the navigations very clear, that where I'm navigating for a particular. So for this, I'll go to People Tools, Security, User Profile, again User Profile. Under that, I'll go to the Roles tab. Under Roles, you will see a lot of role name listed. Let's take a role. Let me take the Absence Management Administration role itself, the first one, EM Administrator. So let's try to go to View Definition to see what this role all about. Now, if you see in this role, the description mentioned that this role applies to the Absence Management Core Application. So this is something, the delivered role, which is the core application of the absence management. Now if I go to the second tab, permission list, you will see that there are 4 permission lists attached to it. So now what we have noted till now, we have the user profile,
there are roles linked to the user profile. When we open the roles, there are permission links to the roles. Next, if I open this particular permission list, let me open the third one, which is AWE employees. So now we are on the permission list. And if you see in the permission list, first is the generic tab, but if you see on the second tab, the pages, here we have the menu links. Then inside the menu, if we go, we can see the list of components here. So if you see, they are all unchecked, this one is checked. Correct. So now they are all components. If I go inside the components, there will be the pages of that component, and we can check whether it's authorized to see or not. What kind of a mode, action is authorized or it is authorized to perform, and whether you want to make this page a display only. So what has happened here? What we have done, we have a one page. Page is linked to a component, component is linked to a menu. Menu, page, component combination is linked to a permission list. And that permission list is attached to a role, and the role is attached to a user profile. That's how the entire sequence of linkage, the security to one to another is happening, and in the last, that particular user will able to browse to that particular page. Now, if I make it display only, then the user will able to browse to that page, but will not able to modify the content. The entire content will be display only format. So this is how we define this. Let's go back to the home. Now we are on the home page. The next thing we are going to talk about is the job. Basically, if you have seen, we have talked about a lot of things till now, which includes the company, department, location, establishment, job code, salary admin plans. So now all these things are going to combine because those were all setups. Now we have to talk about the assigning those values to an employee so that we can have the employee's presentation in the organization. What is that? That employee job profile in an organization. So let's go to workforce administration, job information, job data. So here in job data, we are going to see what is the job profile. So before going to modify the existing employee, because if you see, we can't add any new employee, because in Peoplesoft, adding the job profile required first adding the personal information. So let's go first and talk about adding the personal information, then attaching the organization relationship to that employee. What does that mean? That an employee is present as a person in our system first, and then we attach that person to the organization with a relationship. What kind of a relationship are possible? That can be an employee, which is a permanent employee having all the benefits and kind of a additional benefits given by the organization. Second comes the contingent worker, kind of a non-employee working based from the third party vendors. Then next comes the POI, which is also named as person of interest. Basically, in that category, we can put any kind of a trainer come in to provide the training within the organization. We can provide some retirees can be there who are getting pensions, or there can be any director level or major senior level which are not directly the employee, or the stakeholder of the organizations which are not directly the employee but still have the interest in that particular organization. Now question comes, we have to add the employee. So for that, instead of going to the job data and job information, we are going to go to the personal information. Under personal information, we will go to the biographical, and here we will say add a person. So if you see, currently the person ID is coming as new. Let's click on add a person. The system will automatically generate the next number. If you remember, in the beginning of the sessions, we were talking about the last ID assigned on the installation table. So it will take the next number, whatever is present in the installation table. Now here you can see there are 4 tabs: biographical details, contact details, regional and organization relationship. Let's start with the biographical detail of an employee. What will come in the biographical detail? See, the effective date is by default for today. Let me just make it 1st of November, so that we are hiring the employee but entering in the system a little late. Or the employee was hired but starting the job from later stage, that we can manage on the job data also. So at this moment, let's say the format type is English, display name, let's add the name to the employee. We are going to use this as a test employee. So the first name we'll put as test and the last name we'll put as employee. So if I say refresh name, it will show us the different format of the name. Let's say OK. Here you can see test employee. And let's put the date of birth as employee as 1st November 1994. And its birth country is, let's change it to GBR. Let's change it to GBR. Let's take a Saricon. We can now put the little bit on the biological history. What is the gender? Let's say this is a male. Higher education, let's put as technical school. Marital status, let's put single. So we can put all this information. Then we can also put the national ID for that. Like if currently for US it is coming as social security number, let's try to put this for UK. I'll just remove it. I'm not putting any national ID. That is not mandatory for now. Let's go to the contact information. Contact information, we are going to assign the home address. We can assign any other type of addresses also, phone number and email address. So here if you see, I can click add address details. So here it's say effective date is this GBR, status is active. You click on add address. Now see if I put SU while searching it, it has given me just all the country started with SU. So I can select Surrey from here. I can assign the postal code also. Now if you see the address is coming up here, and I can click OK again, come to the main page. Similarly, I can assign the phone number and email addresses. There are various type of phone numbers allowed, so we can assign them. Next, go to the regional information, which are specific to the certain regions. If you see, the first one is coming from Australia, then from Brazil, then from Canada, Switzerland, Germany, Spain, France. Here we have the United Kingdom. Basically, why all these are different? Because there are different requirements for different country. But as I have mentioned earlier also, we are seeing all because of the demo environment. But when we have the actual implementation and we correctly configure the installation table, we will only be able to see the country we are specific to us. Now if I say ethnic group, let's select white. And then we can go for the community background. Community background, what is we are Catholic or undetermined. Arrived by the direct questions, determination date. Basically, how we have arrived to this community background for that employee. So let's keep them blank. Those are not the mandatory ones. So if you see, notice one thing, person ID is still coming as new. Let's try to save this and see what happens. So it is saying that the organizational relationship must be created for this person. Now if we go up, it's still showing as new. Let's go to the organizational relationship. And let's say this is an employee. With the employee got 0. Now click on save here. We have not attached the details of the organizational relationship. We have mentioned this will be an employee. The social security number we have left blank. So that is the warning it is giving. Now if you have noticed that it has generated the person ID, which is nothing, it's an employee ID 0043. Now we can click on add the relationship to enter the job profile for this employee. Okay, now we are on the job details of the employee. If you see here, there are total 6 tabs we can see: work location, job information, job level, payroll, salary plan, and compensation. So let's talk about the work location first. Here if you see, we have status active. We can see our employee name. The relationship is EMP, which is employee. The employee ID is 0043. The employee code is 0. Basically, employee record is used when we are talking about the multiple jobs a person is doing within the same organization. Then we can have multiple record to track it. Now, let's go to the effective date. As we have standard, currently it is coming as 11/1/2014 as we have put on the beginning of the screen. Now, action, we are saying hire. We can select the reason also. Let's say this is new position. Now, we can define the sequence number. Currently it is 0 because for a date, if you are doing multiple entry, then we require the sequence number to be increased. And job indicator, it is a primary job. So last start date is 11/11 because this is today we are assigning it. Expected job end date, we are not going to put anything. Position number, no, we are not going to use the position management here. So let's keep it blank. Now let's talk about these. Regulatory reason, this is USA, they are put, and company, we can use, let's prompt GB, let's use GBI. So Global Business Institute. Now business unit is defaulted based on the default setup for the user we have logged in with. So let it keep it like this GBI VU. Let's try to prompt for the department. Department, let's take human resource department here. Now if you notice something, as soon as I selected the department, the company has become red only. I can't modify it anymore. The location and establishment are automatically populated. Now I want to highlight specifically here. If you remember when we are talking about department, I mentioned that we can default the company location establishment for a particular department. And if those defaults are set up there, it will automatically get defaulted in the job. So that is something, there is no need to worry about assigning the company and all those values. Just assign the department and everything will be automatically defaulted. So this is how we are giving the basic information, which is as the work location of an employee. Second comes the job information. What do you mean by job information? Something, when I say job information, it might trigger in your mind about job code. Yeah, you are correct. So if you see, the first thing they're asking about the job code. Let's try to prompt it and see the first job code itself. We can say the accountant, which is 110000. I will select this particular job code. Then there is a column called supervisor level, which we want to define for the reporting purpose itself. Supervisor ID, who will be the supervisor for this particular employee. Now here the supervisor ID got automatically populated based on the job code I have selected. So that's how it is getting default. Or sometime when we have the department manager, so those will also treat it as the supervisor for that. Whether the employee is regular or temporary, we can define here full-time, part-time. Employee class is like whether it's a trainee, whether it's a consultant, what kind of employee class we have. It's majorly for the reporting purpose. Officer code. So if we have any senior person, we can put the officer code for that. Regular shift, if we have shifts to be defined, if an employee is working first, second, third, or any kind of a shift. Shift rate and shift factor we can put to define in case we are applying for these shifts. Then standard hours come into the picture. We are this employee. These are informations coming from the job. If you remember, standard hours, work period, those are present in the job. So if I have to override for an employee, I can directly come and override here. So for this particular job, 40 hours is the standard hour weekly, which is 1 FTE. If I change this 40 to 30, my FTE will automatically be updated. See, now it will become 0.75 FTE. So let me change back to 40. Now next below, there are a lot of other setups which are specific to the different countries. Now going up, next comes the job labor. This is specifically when we have the labor agreements present in the area where we are operating from. So if there is any kind of a labor agreement, then we can assign those, all the agreement types, dates, and different parameters specific to the labor laws. Next comes the payroll. Now payroll is one of the important things where we are going to define how we are going to calculate the employee's check. Now if you see, currently payroll system is coming as payroll for North America, HRMS system is coming as other. Pay group is defined, which defines how the payroll is going to execute. Then employee type is hourly. Tax location codes define the working location tax location, working location tax for that employee. Then GL pay type is to map it with the general ledger. then holiday schedule, what are the holidays defined, then whether the employee is tipped or untipped, what is the FICA status for that, whether this employee is exempt from FICA, which is federal income credit, or whether the employee is exempt from that. Now if you see, I can change the payroll system to global payroll, other, or payroll interface. As soon as I change it to global payroll, the entire content below will change. See, it is again asking for the pay group, but it is now asking for the pay group for global payroll execution. Then whether we want to use pay group eligibility, whether we want to use pay group rate type, or whether we want to use pay group as of date. If not, we can assign our own eligibility, rate type, and date. Then holiday schedule is defined here, and then below we have some of the country specific parameters to execute the global payroll. So let's now put North American payroll itself back and see it is not defaulted now. Let me also assign some tax location code so that payroll system knows that how the working state taxation needs to be calculated. Now, next let's talk about the salary plan. As you remember, we were talking about salary plan which get defaulted automatically depend on the job code. Here the same thing happened. If you see salary admin plans, grade and grade entry date, they all are already defaulted from the whatever the salary admin plan we have assigned on the job code level. So now salary admin plan and grade are defaulted. Let me click on compensation information. Here is one more level step. Now if you see, currently compensation is not have any default. Reason being, we have to click on default pay components, so it will automatically pull the default information from the salary admin plan and bring it over to this particular pay component. Okay, now as you click on this, it has not defaulted any information. That means for the salary admin plan we have selected, there might be no defaults defined. Let me go back and try to see some other salary admin plan and grade. Let me try to select grade 1. Try to see what are the steps available. Here it is, salary admin plan, grade and step. Let me select step 1. Now go to the compensation and click on default pay components. Now here if you see, it has defaulted, which is NA annual, and the comp rate is 11,440 USD annually. So this is how it has defaulted it. I can add multiple new values, and as soon as I add a value, let me try to put some other rate code along with that. Job grade pay. So this is specifically parameter for the job grade. So as soon as I do that, let me click on calculate compensation. It will calculate and update the comp rate code here on the top, which is monthly it is showing. So this is how we can update the comp rates. So it has changed drastically because 12,000 is monthly frequency here. Now we can click on OK. So it is saying that the hourly rate is greater than the maximum specified on the salary grade table. So these are the warning messages which help us not to overpay an employee. But if we are intentionally doing it, we can just ignore these warning messages. Okay, now if you have noticed, we have come back to the same component where we were putting the personal information. Now the employee is already generated. Now we can click on the save button and this will save the entire information. Now if you have noticed that the new employee which is generated as 0043. Now let's go back to home and try to do the maintenance of this employee. For example, I want to promote this employee. How we'll do that as an HR? We'll go to the workforce monitor, job information. Under job information, we will go to the job data. And now I will search for the employee 0043. Now if you see, we have opened up the job information. This is the same panels where we have assigned the job information. Now there are two ways we can modify it. Either we'll update whatever the current information is, but we don't want to do that. We want to maintain the history of the employee. Sometimes we want to see the exact information, so we can go to the prior rows. So what we are going to do? We are going to add the new row. Employee, what are the major information we have to change? Majorly we have to change the job code of the employee, the job profile might be changing, and the compensation of the employee. So that are the two things we are going to do. So now if you see, we have added the new row. Now it is on the ones of 2. Because we have the top of the stack, let's put the effective date as 11/11/2014 and change it to promotion and change the reason to outstanding performance. Now here what I can do, I'll go to the salary plan and I'll change the step of the employee. I know one of the other thing we have to change is the job information. It was the accountant earlier, then we can say now he is the administrator. Now for that job code, if we go to the pay grade, okay, we are good. Now we can go to the compensation. We can again click for defaulting the compensation. So if you see, it has now changed. It has become the different compensation value, 12,255. You can click on the calculate compensation once to make sure that everything is correct and then save it. We can ignore these formulas if we want, or if we feel that these wordings are valid, we can go back and click cancel and modify the required information and then click on the save button. See, now we have saved the information and you can see the updated compensation as well as the job information with the new row effective from 11/11/2014. Let's go back to home. Now in this, if you will do a quick recap, we have gone through the basic architecture of Peoplesoft, then we talked about the basic setups of the Peoplesoft, and then we learned how to hire an employee and assign different values, which is the department, job code, company, location, establishment, job, compensation information, and all this to the employee, and modify, promote the employee. So this gives us how we maintain the basic information of the employee in the system. Thanks everyone. Thanks a lot for your time, and hopefully we'll meet in some other discussion again.